Glock Model 20 in 10mm. This is one of the large frame Glocks. It's an incredible full-size pistol. It does come in the smaller frame, which is the Model 29, which really just makes this compact. It just drops it down. It makes it smaller for concealed carry. But this still, even in the Glock 29, is a very large pistol. We're going to look at the Glock itself in the 10mm caliber, but we're also going to talk about 10mm itself and why in the world you'd want a 10mm.
Oh yeah, baby.
The first thing we're going to do is we're going to safety check our pistol. Now the Glock Model 20 is pretty much the exact same dimensions as the Glock Model 21, which is a 45 ACP. And it's a very large, it's one of Glock's largest pistols. It has a thicker slide than their basic 9 or their 40 caliber. In fact, I'm going to pull this Model 17 out and give you a good idea of what we're talking about. It is considerably thicker. And it is a little longer. The slide does come out just a touch. The barrel's just a little bit longer. But this is a full-size 9mm, the Model 17. And yet, this Model 20 is a bigger handgun all the way around. This is a Gen 2. It doesn't have the accessory rail. They haven't come out with a Gen 4 yet. But they do have the Gen 3 with the accessory rail and with the slim frame. Which, the slim frame, all it does is it decreases this dimension here. It doesn't make it any thinner, but it does remove some of the back strap, so you have a little bit of a better grip. To be honest with you, when you pick up a Glock 20 or 21, it is a handful. In fact, unless you have really large hands, these aren't the most comfortable to hold on to. But I'm going to tell you, seriously, every one of the Glocks, I've got a 21 and a Model 30 in the 45 ACP. And even though it's funny when I put it in my hand, I think, man, this thing is big. They are just accurate. In fact, the Model 30 is one of the most accurate pistols that I've ever shot. You know, sometimes just because you may feel like you're holding on to something, maybe like a 2x4, honestly, the first time I picked up one, that's what I thought. After shooting it, I changed my opinion about how I felt about the grip of the gun. I have medium-sized hands, and so this is not necessarily very comfortable like the Glock 17. The Glock 17 just naturally fits into my hand. Now, I had never shot Glock in a 10mm. I've shot 10mm before. In fact, the Delta Elite by Colt was one of the first 10mm I had shot. And I also shot a Bren 10. And those guns really would just beat you up, to me. And so I've never really been a huge fan of 10mm until Glock came out with the 10mm. And ever since they have, I've really wanted a 10mm. Because the one thing about Glock is that this pistol was built around the 10mm caliber. And most of the other pistols were taking existing designs, beefing it up, and making it to where it was able to shoot the 10mm. This is different with the Glock Model 20, with the Glock Model 29, which is the compact version of this same pistol. In fact, the only difference is it has a shorter grip, and it has a little bit of a shorter slide. Now, the gun unloaded weighs about 27.5 ounces. Now, honestly, I put this on the scale, and this particular gun weighed 31 ounces unloaded. But, of course, according to the Glock website, it's just a little over 27 ounces. So while it's still a fairly light pistol, for Glock standards, it's pretty heavy. It has a little over a 4.5-inch barrel. In fact, it's 4.6 inches the barrel length. The Model 29, which is the compact version, is about 3 3/4 of an inch barrel length. Now that they've made these in the slim frame, though, they have become more popular with shooters. Now, the magazines themselves, it comes with 2 magazines, and they hold 15 rounds, which I think is fantastic. Being able to hold that many rounds in a large frame pistol. My Glock 17 just holds 17 rounds, so you're only losing 2 rounds with a lot more capability. There's a lot better ballistics with 10mm. It's a much flatter trajectory, and the range is greater. But in fact, the 10mm is the only semi-automatic caliber, and when I say semi-automatic, I mean rimless cartridge, fired out of a pistol that is legal to hunt white-tailed deer. And these are also used as a backup for dangerous game. In fact, the Danish Cyrus Patrol, and I'm probably mispronouncing it, in Greenland, they put 2-man teams together, and they do a lot of military law enforcement observations on Greenland, carry the Glock 10mm to fend off polar bears. Of course, this breaks down like any other Glock, and again, safety check. The Glock pistol is really easy to break down. just pulling these tabs down, pulling this back about 1/8 of an inch, and then pulling it straight forward. Then of course you have your recoil spring, and you have your barrel. That is one incredible barrel. Look at that. Nice solid slide. Glock just makes excellent pistols, and if anybody can make something that would withstand the pressures of 10mm, Glock will do it. And these are the 5 parts of your pistol. You really don't need to break them down any more than this, and this is your field strip. To reassemble, barrel goes in, recoil spring, ready to go. Here we have the 10mm right here. We have a 45 ACP, your 40 Smith & Wesson, and your 9mm. So immediately you can see that the case length is considerably larger than the other 3. And this allows for more powder, which allows for more pressures. Now this is a 180 grain bullet, and what I've used here, all 3 of these are TMJs, or total metal cased bullets. They're all actually from HPR, which HPR sent me 10mm to test and evaluate the 10mm itself. And one of the things about HPR, it's really hyper clean ammunition. And it has really good qualities, really great ballistics. But visually, you can compare the 10 to the other 3 major calibers. These are your most common for self-defense loads. Now here's the 10mm right next to the 40 Smith & Wesson. Now here's the 40 and the 10mm laid down and looking at it from the primer side forward. And as you can see, they're pretty much the same, but you will notice that the 10mm primer is a large pistol primer, and the 40 is a small pistol primer. That's going to give you better ignition into the powder itself. But the only difference is the case length. And so here's the case length of the 40 caliber compared to the 10mm. Of course, again, 40 caliber came out of 10mm. Now the FBI had a really famous shooting incident down at Dade County, just out of Miami. And they were really ill-equipped with 9mm to go against these guys. In fact, a number of FBI agents were shot during that shootout. FBI went to the 10mm. And then they found out that the 10mm was really a little bit too excessive compared to the other calibers, and that many of the agents really just weren't able to handle the excessive pressures and to be able to get second and third shots. So they went down to the FBI 10mm, which was a 10mm in dimension, but they lessened the powder charge, which led to the 40 caliber, because they felt like they could shorten the case, get the same kind of ballistics they were getting with this larger case in a smaller frame pistol. Now, of course, we have our old standby, the 45 ACP, which is an excellent round, but Jeff Cooper designed the 10mm. Jeff Cooper is the one who actually developed the 10mm in the first place, and the 10mm was born in 1983. And really, it was an answer to the 45 ACP, which Jeff Cooper also was a big fan of. But the difference with the 10mm is that it was better ballistics, it was a flatter trajectory, and there was a greater range with the 10mm. Now, to give you an idea about ballistics, first thing I want to look at is the muzzle velocity of a 10mm. And it's 1,270 feet per second, compared to the 45, which is 830 feet per second. The 40 caliber is 945 feet per second, but the 9mm is 1,164 feet per second. But the one difference is you have a smaller grain bullet. The 10mm by far exceeds the other 3. But now here's the real key: muzzle energy. Muzzle energy of a 10mm is 645 foot-pounds at the muzzle. A 45 ACP is 352 foot-pounds. So the 40 caliber has 357 foot-pounds, and the 9mm has 346 foot-pounds. To be honest with you, these 3 are a lot closer than you think. The big thing is with the 45, it's just a heavier mass coming. But with the 10mm, you have a lot of speed, plus you have a decent amount of mass, so you're really going to be able to create a lot of energy. So ballistically, the 10mm is superior to these 3 rounds. Now here we have a 357 Magnum next to the 10mm. And in performance loads, the 10mm can excel the 357. And the 357 is well documented to be one of the best self-defense one-shot stoppers of any other caliber. And yet the 10mm matches the 357 Magnum. Now, considering you have only 6 shots with the 357 Magnum, and you can go 15 in 1 with 10mm, if I was facing down a polar bear, I think I'd take the 10. The recoil on this 10mm is very manageable. And you know, this is the thicker slide like the Model 21 45, but it's not really that weighty. It just really holds up well in your hand. And the accuracy is incredible. The only reason I'm going to stop shooting this today is I'm going to run out of ammo. Whether it's for self-defense, hunting, or you just love to go out to the range with a good, solid, full-powered pistol, the Glock Model 20 and 29 are up to the task. Be strong, be of good courage. God bless America. Long live the Republic. But just visually, if you're looking for a 10mm option, oops. The Glock Model 29 isn't great.